Hey, let's take some time and talk about another wonderful piece of art. I'll be talking about here about the Girl with a Pearl Earring by Johannes Vermeer. This is a very wonderful, beautiful piece, and it's an important piece for my Scholar Bowl kids to learn about. And hey, you can hang around and maybe increase your depth of knowledge too. But let's take some time here with this painting. And when we look at her, she's really not, she isn't quite smiling, and she really isn't like, striking a pose. She isn't really looking directly at us. But yet, once you see her, you really don't forget the image. You don't forget her. And Girl with a Pearl Earring is one of the most famous paintings in the world. And it's not because of what it shows, it's because of what it refuses to explain. So let's talk about the painting that really isn't a portrait. So Johannes Vermeer painted Girl with a Pearl Earring around 1665. And when you first glance at it, it does look like a portrait, but it really isn't. There's really no record of who the girl is. There's no real name or background or setting, and that's because this type of painting is called a trony. It's a study of a face or an expression, not necessarily a real person. And that's what makes this painting so powerful, because she isn't really someone specific. She's a moment. And when you look at the painting, the girl turns her head slightly. She has her lips parted and her eyes are quite wide. And it feels like someone has just called her name, right? That the moment is unfinished. It's kind of frozen between, the movement and then the stillness of her looking back. And that's kind of the magic here. Because, Vermeer doesn't tell us, he doesn't tell us like who she is or what she's thinking or why she, turned to look. The viewer fills in that silence, those blanks. And it's that silence that keeps pulling people back to the painting. Now, when we look at Vermeer, we know a few things about him, and that was one, he was obsessed with light. The soft glow on the girl's face, there was a subtle shadow under her chin, and the contrast between the dark background and the quality of her skin, it's luminous. And then when you look at the pearl, the earring, it isn't painted in great detail. It's just a few brushstrokes, but it reflects light so perfectly that it becomes the focal point. The pearl, it symbolizes like, wealth and purity and mystery and illusion. But if you look more closely, it may not even be a pearl at all. It may be, a fake pearl. I mean, that would be quite a hefty pearl for 1665. And so maybe it's, just light that's painted to look like a pearl, a glass pearl. And despite the painting being over 350 years old, Girl with a Pearl Earring does have quite a modern feel to it. And that's because the painting, isn't heavy. It doesn't really preach anything. It doesn't take time to explain, and it doesn't, it just observes. And when you look at the painting, it does feel kind of close or intimate, almost, cinematic, like a paused, a film frame. Like you click, you stop it, and it's right there. And the painting invites the viewer into really kind of a private moment. And then it doesn't explain it. And it's that ambiguity that makes the painting timeless. Now, also, when we look at the painting, there's a great deal of power in what's unsaid about it. Because, there's no background story, and there's no real symbolism that's spelled out, and it doesn't seem to have a moral lesson behind it. Yet, people do project onto the girl, onto her. You have curiosity or innocence, or maybe there's a sense of longing, or maybe she's sad or melancholy. Maybe there's this quiet confidence about her. And so the painting becomes kind of a mirror, and what you see in her often says more about you than it does about her. Now, why do I talk about it? Other than I want my kids to be able to know more about it, but there is a reason why this painting still matters. And I think it comes down to when you look at a world that's flooded with noise and, oversharing and things like that, I think this painting really does the opposite. It's restrained. It's quiet. It's placing a great deal of trust on the viewer. And Vermeer reminds us that not everything needs a backstory. Not everything needs to be explained. And, sometimes beauty can come from the quiet moments, from stillness and restraint. And from mystery. Girl with a Pearl Earring, I think it endures because it really refuses to tell us what to think. It simply asks us to look. And really, in that quiet moment, between, her gaze and ours, it just, I feel like the painting just, well, it just becomes alive. Thanks for watching.